You know, guys, I'm a massive fan of MMA, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about what Dustin Poirier said back in September of 2019. I'll quote it. When he lost to Khabib, he said, "If anything adversity's taught me in the past is when times are good, be grateful. And with times like this, be graceful." He went through adversity losing the championship match against Khabib, and the adversity taught him to be graceful. Well, today, our guest is going to be talking about his adversity. See, as a young athlete, he was cut from his middle school team 2 years in a row. And he then continued to put in the work, going through adversity year in and year out and year in and year out, all the way up until now. I mean, he's going through adversity every single year, but he kept putting in the work, put his faith in the right places and put in the work himself. And then he broke a record for the college that he plays for. He's now a senior at Lycoming, and you want to hear this guy's story. You don't want to miss this episode of the Gametime Guru. So,
what time is it? Game time!
This is the Gametime Guru podcast, where I interview sports figures from all over the world to help deliver a panoramic view on sports. So whether you're a former athlete, one of the crazies, or simply a casual sports fan, this is the perfect show for you as we peel back the curtains and learn from our guests every single week. I'm your host, Shane Larson, and I'm helping you see sports through a different lens. What's up, everybody? Welcome out to another episode of the Gametime Guru podcast. I am your host, Shane Larson. We are now very, very close to hitting 70,000 total downloads of the podcast. Thanks in large part to everybody out there. Now, one of the biggest things I've kept telling you guys in every single episode for the last 4.5, almost 5 years now is please leave me a review of the show. If this is your first time listening to the podcast and you happen to have an Apple device, like you have an iPhone or whatever it is, make sure to go leave me a review on the podcast. The reason I ask that is because the more reviews we get, the more people this gets out to. That's the way the algorithm works on Apple. So the more reviews the show gets, the more people get to hear it, and the more people get to hear the stories of our guests. And that's why I keep asking you that. But thank you to everybody who has been on the show, who has supported the show. We've hit 92 different countries, almost 70,000 downloads. We're going to celebrate when we hit 70,000. It's going to be super, super cool. So we have another story. Like I said in the introduction here, we have a story of perseverance and consistency and hard work and staying true to yourself. And we get to hear from our guest himself about this journey that he's been on. And it hits home to me because I was what we call a late bloomer when I was in high school. Granted, that was 16 years ago. But when I was in high school, I was a late bloomer. You know, I didn't actually hit my peak till I was about 17, 18, but I was already graduated when I was 17 years old from high school. And so my athleticism and my skill set didn't actually peak until, you know, after my varsity year, my last year of varsity, my senior year. This guest today is going to talk to us about his journey through the middle school ranks and just getting cut and having to stay true to himself and moving forward. His name is Matt Ilodigwe. I'm going to just say his first name, which is Matt. And he's going to join us. He's going to talk to us about his journey and share that with the rest of you guys. So, Matt, thanks so much for joining the show, brother.
Thanks for having me on, Shane. It's an honor.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I'm stoked to talk to you, man. Talk to us about the college that you're at right now, though. It's is it called Lycoming out in Pennsylvania?
Yep, Lycoming College, Williamsport, Pennsylvania. You know, it's a small school, but it's a lot of great people here. Small school in Williamsport.
Nice. Okay, so a smaller school out there, Lycoming College. I believe it's the Mac Freedom Conference, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, the Mac Freedom Conference. And just to educate the listeners, some might be casual fans, some might just be the people who just listen to the podcast for the stories. So we kind of want to give a little bit of a background on that, though. I never hate on small schools because anybody who has actually played sports, competed at any level, whether it's a junior college, it's a smaller school, whatever it is, understands that the next level of athleticism or athletics, I should say, is better than high school. That's what it is, and it's going to be difficult. So whether it's a small school or not, there are some hoopers, there are some athletes out there on all these levels of basketball. There's so many hidden gems out there, if you will. So talk to us about the type of competition you guys have, the schools that are involved in the conference real quick, so that we can get a little bit of a background and understanding of Lycoming and who your competition is right now.
Yeah. Like you said, man, it's hoopers everywhere, no matter the division. Like you said, we play in the MAC Freedom Conference. Schools like FDU, Fordham, um, who we play, DeSales, Stevens, and actually we were in the MAC Commonwealth last year. We just moved to the Freedom this year. So like in that conference, you got Albright, Alvernia, Widener, teams that are like really good. I mean, Weiner, I remember like 2 years ago, they were ranked like top 5 in the country for D3. So like, definitely, it's good competition. And we've had our hands full in our, runs the past 2 years, but definitely like every night's a battle, especially in conference play. Like no one's just going to let you come in and just walk all over you. Like it's a battle. So yeah, definitely it's a lot of competition and a lot of talent at Lycoming and in these other schools that we play.
I dig that. I want all the listeners, especially the ones that I coach, the 16, 17-year-old kids that I'm coaching right now, to understand that. We're out here in Idaho, the other side of the country,
Mm-hmm.
but some kids have that mentality of, oh, it's D1 or bust. And I'm like, no, listen, like realistically, if you're under 6'2", it's going to be very difficult to make a D1 school. That's just the reality of it. Not saying it's impossible. I will never tell a kid it's impossible, but I want them to understand that it's not the worst thing in the world to go to a smaller school. You're going to have hoopers everywhere. You're going to elevate your game everywhere. There are so many. There's just so much talent across the board, across the country. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Now, Matt, we're going to rewind the clock real quick about your experience. So those who are listening, they're going to be like, okay, I know there's a story here. So let's get to that story. Your path, if somebody was just looking at your path back when you were in middle school, they would never have imagined you being where you're at today, playing college basketball. So let's talk about your days growing up, and you had gotten cut from your middle school team, not once, but 2 times. But I want you to explain that to us and how that affected you as a young man, because a lot of us as young men, that's kind of when, some of those kids who have been playing their whole lives, if they start getting cut in their middle school team, that's kind of when they veer off of athletics. You know what I mean? They kind of say, okay, here's the reality that's setting in, and they kind of go a different route, whereas other guys continue to compete. How did that affect you back then, and how did you keep going?
Yeah. So, middle school, I was short, small. I was a late bloomer. Like I was one of the shortest kids in my school. I feel like I had talent, but it was easy to overlook me. You know what I'm saying? So, I got cut my 6th grade year. I felt like I was okay. Like before 6th grade, I played in elementary school, just, at the local Y MCA teams and stuff like that. But yeah, I got cut my 6th grade year. And then 7th grade year, I was for sure thought I was going to make it. That summer I knew I trained, I put in the work, but I think I made it to the last cuts and ultimately got cut. And yeah, like it was tough for me. Honestly, like I contemplated quitting the game, you know. And I remember going home crying, telling my mom, like, yo, like I got cut 2 years in a row. Like I don't know if I should do it anymore. And she was just encouraging me, like, yo, just keep going. Like she always used to say Michael Jordan got cut in high school. So that kind of like gave me hope to keep going. You know what I'm saying? So her through her help and stuff like that, I just continued to train throughout the summer. I got in a Catholic league. Since I got cut, I got in the Catholic league, got my confidence up, did pretty good in that league. And then from there, 8th grade year, I tried back out. And not many people know this. I actually made the team, but they put me on JV. So I was one of the only 8th graders on JV, so I was finally glad to make the team, but like that hurt too, you know what I'm saying? Because all my friends, who are in my grade are all in 8th grade, they're all on varsity, and they're like, yo, you're playing with 7th and 6th graders on JV. So, I mean, I just embraced it. I was happy to finally make the team, but yeah, I did still have a chip on my shoulder. Like, yo, I have to try to move up to varsity. So I actually never got to move up. I asked the coach, I was like, hey, I'm an 8th grader. I'm trying to get ready for high school. Can I get on varsity? And the opportunities just never came. So I use that as motivation. And ever since then, like, and looking back at it, like today, I'm thankful for that because like that chip on my shoulder is still on my shoulder, and it's helped me through, the obstacles that I went through in high school, and it's going to continue to help me. So, like, yeah, man, it was crazy, but I'm grateful for that.
I think that I wish people would understand that. So that's technically like 3 years of kind of a
Yeah.
stab, right? Like 3 years, not
Mhm.
just 2. You got cut twice. But the third year, like you said, it was almost kind of like, okay, here you go, but you're going to go on to JV. And it's like, man, like there we go
Right.
again. It's another stab. But what I appreciate about your story, and I'm super inspired by it, is the fact that you stayed true to yourself. Like you knew, like there's kids who have a reality that sets in and they say, nah, dude, I'm not there. I'm just not there. That's not going to be. But you knew that you could compete. You knew you could compete. You knew you were good enough to do it. You just needed to keep putting the work in, and your time would come. But
Mhm.
you had to stay true to yourself. And I respect that about you, that you kept moving forward. You mentioned you joined a Catholic league, and what you said there was that you gained some confidence. If you could tell the younger athletes right now, Matt, maybe those who are in middle school or early high school days, how important is confidence in your ability to compete? You might be the most athletic guy on the court, but how important is confidence for you?
I honestly feel like it's the most important skill to have in basketball or in life. Just like confidence, like if you don't believe in yourself first, like you won't be able to achieve anything that you're trying to achieve. Like without confidence, like it's just like you can put in so much work in by yourself and everything, but if you're in the game and you're just like you don't believe in yourself, then you won't be successful. So I would say confidence is the number one skill. And yeah, it took me going to play in the Catholic League just to gain confidence. Like it was a school called IHM. That's who I played for. And that coach, he embraced me. He put the ball in my hands. I was a point guard, so I basically ran the show. And like just those experiences, those games, had me just like feeling like, yeah, like I can play. I can play at a high level. And then just for the young athletes out there, like you don't even have to play in the league. Sometimes it's just going to the park and going to the park, playing 5-on-5, and just I don't know, bringing the ball down the court, making a move, and scoring a layup. Like that type of stuff, the little stuff like that goes a long way into building confidence. And over time, if you continue to put in the work and continue to do little things like I don't know, like play 1-on-1 against someone who might be better than you, or just play at a local park, that stuff over time will help you gain confidence.
I love that. I love that advice. That's such an important concept. I want the kids to know, like, if you want to keep playing, you can't just hope that it's going to happen. You've got to go do something,
Right.
put yourself out there. But you'd be surprised if you can go do that. Like, I love the idea of go to a local park and play. Bring the ball up the court, have the ball in your hands, and make a move or something, and just gain that confidence little by little, because that's going to be so important. What I've talked, like when I talked to Walter Bond and Chris Childs and Jerry Stackhouse and Roberto Bergerson and Randy Livingston, these guys who played in the NBA, one of the things, like especially Jerry Stackhouse talked about confidence. Like that was like one of the biggest things for him. He might not have been the best guy. He came into the NBA. What a lot of people didn't know. I had to talk to him about this, but a lot of people didn't know that Jerry Stackhouse came into the NBA and he was drafted as a guard, but he played his whole entire life as a four. So he was playing the forward. Well, he gets drafted in the NBA, high round draft pick, like very high draft pick, and now he's all of a sudden guarding guys on the wing. He's guarding guys that were like Allen Houston, Reggie Miller, these types of guys that were legends in the NBA. And he's not used to playing defense on the wing. He's used to playing defense in the post. And he was talking about how important confidence was for him, even though he was new to the whole entire thing and he was getting like just torched day in and day out at first because he wasn't used to it. His confidence level was so high, and that's what kept him going. So confidence is huge. Now, Matt, going into high school, what was your confidence level like going into high school after those 3 years prior where it wasn't necessarily what you wanted it to be?
Yeah, so going into high school as a freshman, um, so my confidence was iffy, like one part of myself knew that I could play at a high level, but then another part of myself was like, oh, I don't have the experience. I've only played JV. And, as a freshman going into high school, you want to play varsity. I'll just be honest. Every freshman wants to play varsity or JV. So that was my goal. And coming in, I started off on freshman. I played pretty good throughout the season. I started on the freshman team, so that was actually, um, you know, it helped me like from a confidence standpoint. The coach, like I said, I was the point guard, so I was basically running the show on freshman, and then I played pretty good throughout the season, gaining the experience. Then I got moved up to JV towards the end of my freshman year. So definitely from middle school to high school, I had that same chip on my shoulder. Some of my middle school teammates were on my high school team, and then some of the teams that we played, some of my middle school teammates were on that team too. So I had a chip on my shoulder coming in, so that definitely sparked that.
I dig that. It seems like that's kind of a constant theme right now for you, like having a chip on your shoulder, but being able to utilize that for motivation. Some people, when they feel the pressure, they got a chip on their shoulder, they don't know how to utilize that correctly, and that's when you'll see their careers go in a tailspin. But you obviously were able to utilize that the proper way for the motivation and the determination. Now, talk to me about this, Matt. I want to know about your when you were in high school and you're going through your journey, and you made the freshman team, you're starting and you're doing your thing. What was your workout ethic like? Your work ethic and your workouts. What was your routine like? What did a day look like for Matt as you were going through each year trying to compete? I mean, it's a student athlete, but what did your work ethic look like in regards to the basketball court?
Yeah, so in high school, so I went to practice, so had practice and basically within practice try to work on some things in the team aspect, and then also either before practice or after practice, I would try to either, if it was in my gym or in my neighborhood park, just go by myself or with one of my brothers and just work on something I needed to fix. So if I had a game, a previous game, I would evaluate my play and just work on the things that I lacked in that game. You know what I'm saying? So it was always for me just trying to find time also by myself to put in work, because sometimes in a team practice in high school, you might not get as much shots as you would like, and you guys might not do drills that work on something that or work on one of your weaknesses. So definitely, like if you're watching, if you're a high school athlete, just make sure you put in the work by yourself too, not just at practice. So yeah.
I dig that. You're not the first person to ever say something to that effect, too. So I want those, like you just said, any high schooler listening to this right now, take note, because Matt knows what it takes. When we had Lawyer Driggs, he plays for Tarleton State now down in Texas, but he's from Idaho. He talked about that, too. He was like, hey, in the mornings I go in, I have to get 500 shots up a day, and that can take an hour and a half to 2 hours at times. And that you have to understand that's going to take a minute to get the shots up, but you're not going to get that in the team practice. The team practice is for the team. You have to also work on your individual skills because that's going to be important as well. You have to continue to sharpen every edge. And so that was one of the things he had to do in the mornings. Then you go to school, and then you have team practice in the afternoon. And this is kind of how it was for him on a daily basis. Obviously, the same concept. You've got to find time to work on it by yourself. So, Matt, as you go through high school, at what point did you actually have – I mean, you went from this pretty rough middle school experience. Now you're in high school, but at what point did you say, okay – now I actually think I can play at the next level, even not just the high school level, not just the varsity level, but at the next level? When did that start clicking into your mind and you realize like, hey, I can actually do this?
Yeah, so it was like my junior year. My junior year was okay. I was still so that was my junior year was my first full year of varsity. Um, my minutes were up and down, but towards the end of my junior year, I had a solid like 5 games, I would say, and then from there playing AAU that summer and going into my senior year, I knew I could play at the next level. AAU definitely helped with my my confidence and just like playing against people that were just like bigger and more skilled than high school athletes. And coming up in Wilmington, Delaware, like um, we used to travel all over the place. AAU, I used to travel to Vegas, New Jersey. We've I can't even we went everywhere. So yeah, so playing against those type of players, and we played every weekend, even weekdays. So just doing that consistently, just I knew I could play at the next level.
Man, I am so glad you brought that up. I didn't even have to ask you that question, but now I'm going to kind of branch off of that because I coach at the club level for AAU club ball. We travel around, and I'm amazed at some of the athletes. I've already known that. I mean, I've been around the basketball scene my whole life, played ball my whole life, and so I know that there's athletes everywhere. But it's crazy what that can do for an athlete when you get
Mm-hmm.
matched up with some of these guys that might be going D1. You never know that there's some D1 prospects or some high level prospects out of different states, and some of these guys that I'm coaching, Matt, I'm like, even this year we were in Vegas as well, and there's a kid who's a freshman in California. He's like 6'6" already, freshman kid who was their main guy on their team. And I'm coaching 16, 17-year-old kids that are going into their junior years, some of them going to their senior years. And I'm like, holy cow, this guy is like literally dominating the court. And he's a freshman in high school. He's coming right out of middle school. That's absurd. So tell me, like, let's branch off that a little bit and talk about the AAU scene because you mentioned it gives you confidence. What do you think the biggest thing AAU helped you with outside of confidence? Was it skill set? Was it adversity? Was it strength? Like, what did you learn how to play a different part of your game? What would you say about like the AAU/club ball scene?
Yeah, AAU taught me a lot, honestly. Like, it taught me how to. I feel like they definitely prepared me for college because, like, on my AAU team, everyone on my team was capable. We all came from the same state, but we were all like one of the best players from our perspective high schools. So one, it taught me how to play with people who are just as skilled as me. Two, it helped definitely playing against people that were bigger and better. Like if like I said, scoring against like I don't know, like a 7-footer or a 6'5" point guard, like that can do a lot for your confidence. And then playing, like, we had coaches. We had tournaments where there was coaches like lined up just watching, and as a kid, you're just like, you try to focus on the game, but then it's like, oh, like that pressure, like, I won a scholarship, so I got to go off like that. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but like that, just pressure, it helps. It helps. For the future. You know what I'm saying? If you're in a tight game and everyone's watching, online or something like that, like playing at a high pressure, high stake game like that prepares you, not just in the present, but in the future. So definitely those three things like prepared me, and it's probably so much other things that AAU taught me, but AAU is definitely I feel like it's key for a young athlete, especially if you're a hooper.
100%, man. I love that
Yeah,
response.
yeah.
That is so awesome. And what's funny about the AAU ball, and all of us know this, if we've competed in it or we've coached in it, whatever it is, there's some big time peaks and valleys. And that's the reality of anything in life. That's the reality of sports, especially. You got peaks and valleys, but there's some big ones. Like you'll you'll win a game that's really close, and then you'll get housed by 30, 40 points. Then you'll go play another one. It's like you have to
That's
figure
a
out,
big one.
dude, you got to figure out how to level out yourself and keep your emotions in check, because you have the highest of highs. The next, literally an hour later, you have the lowest of lows, and you got to get ready to play another game. And you go through a lot of emotions. We call it weathering the storm, just being able to be like, okay, everything's going crazy. The momentum shifted. We just lost this game by 30. Are we really that bad? We just beat two teams and we lose by 30. I want to know from your perspective, Matt, just in sports in general, whether it be AAU, going through all the stuff you've gone through up until now, how do you weather the storm? How do you best prepare to weather those types of storms, those peaks and valleys that come at you in the sports world?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, like AAU definitely taught me highs and lows. I mean, we used to get blown out by 40 and then win by 40, and you might have a great game and a bad game, but even till today, like, I just try to never get too high or too low. That's a big thing. You always want to stay level-headed. You don't want to get too high, and you don't want to get too low on yourself. I was definitely one of those where I used to get low on myself just because of, you put in so much work, throughout the year, and if you don't perform well, you get hard on yourself. But I always try to have like a next play mentality in life and in basketball. Like, you just got to keep moving forward. Like, that's the only way. That's the only way to continue to grow and continue to just be successful. Like, tough times are going to come. I just try to learn from it. So if I have a bad game, I try not to just get hard on myself. Yes, I have to critique myself and see what I could do better. But you learn from it and you just keep moving forward. So the hard times, the lows of life, you just learn from it and see what you can do better, and then just grow from it. It should make you better. So
I dig it. The next play mentality is super important. It's easier said than done, but once you get your mindset to that spot where you've trained yourself, you prepared yourself for that next play mentality in life in general, like it will become something that's just constant, whether it's sports or life. Now, Matt, what made you make the decision to go to Lycoming? Had you ever heard of this school before? And how did you end up over there?
yeah, this is a story. So all right. So my whole senior year, I had a pretty good season. Like, I averaged at least, like, I think 14. I got second team all conference. I was snubbed from the All-Star game in my state, and I still remember that. But other than that, it was a successful year. But I still didn't have any offers. Like, you can ask anyone in my family, like, every year or throughout that summer, I would email tons of schools with my film, with a nice little paragraph, just, explaining who I am, but nothing really, came out of it. A lot of coaches said they weren't interested, or they already had their spots open. So I tried to go to various camps, got a little bit of interest from it, but nothing really fell through. So, I stayed with my AAU coach and stayed with my AAU team throughout my senior year. Or no, my after my high school season, I continued to play AAU as a senior. So I was one of the oldest players on my AAU team. And then, I just continued to play. I played every game like it was my last, because I was fighting to keep my basketball dream alive, So finally, like, we played from April to late July. So late July, and one of the last games of my senior, just like it could have been my career, one of my last games of my career. I finally got an offer from Lycoming. Our coach, Mike McGarvey, he saw me play. It was around like 9:00 at night. And for anyone who plays AAU knows, like, 9:00 at night on a Saturday night, like, coaches aren't really in the building anymore. They probably left, but luckily he was there. You know, and we actually were losing, and I helped my team come back. We ended up losing, but like just I guess my energy and the plays that I were making to help my team come back, it attracted McGarvey, and you know he called me the next morning, and he said he was interested, and you know I just felt like weight came off my shoulders because I was so stressed out. I was telling my mom like if I don't get an offer by the end of the summer, I might either have to quit playing or go to school just as a regular student or try to walk on somewhere. But you know, luckily, and I thank God, like luckily, he gave me an opportunity, and from there, it's been great. But yeah, that's how I got recruited to play at Lycoming.
That is so awesome, man. It is just the story of your career. I mean, it is just like the unknowns, and you just have to keep trusting the process and hoping that like someone's going to see it. And what that just showed me, Matt, was that you never know who's watching.
Yeah.
You never know who might be there. That's what I tell a lot of the kids that I'm coaching too, especially if they start getting a pissy attitude during the middle of a game or something. I'm like, you better pick your head up right now, because I don't care if a coach sees the coach. You're the player, right? Like, you're the player. You better be putting out an effort whether you're losing or not, and keep your head up and stop acting like a piss ass. So like, I always tell them, I'm like, you never know who might be watching here. It could be a junior college coach that just happens to be sitting in the stands that you don't even know that they're a coach. They're just chilling there. It could be a D1 coach that's sitting there with a clipboard. You never know. And or somebody's catching a live stream because grandma's filming it on their Facebook Live, and maybe a coach catches that. You never know who is watching. And so that's why it's important to always put your best effort in, continuously put in the work, regardless of the situation. And if anything, it just helps you get better anyways. If no one's watching, great, but you go and put the time in, and it helps you for the future. You go over to Lycoming. That's a sweet. That could be like a whole entire podcast in and of itself. I'm sure we break down the details. But as you get into Lycoming, Matt, the reason your story was so impressive to me, and I got to give a shout out to Untold Athletes, the Instagram page. I've talked about them before. They bring out some amazing stories. Yours was one of them. That's where I caught it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Record-setting game happened when you were at Lycoming. So talk to us about that. I want you to be the one to explain that piece of the story.
Yeah. So, my freshman year, I hit 11 threes. It was honestly crazy. That game was fun. Like, I felt in control. Everything was just clicking for me. It was towards the end of the year. We didn't really have a good year as a team. I had a pretty good year, you know, coming in as a freshman. But that game was just like my breakout game. I knew it was coming. My coach, he kept feeding, you know, confidence into me. And actually, before the game, you know, me and my coach, McGarvey, we always, you know, get a quick workout in before each and every game. And that morning, I remember he was just saying, like, you're going to have a big game. And I'm like, really? You think so? He was like, yeah. And I was like, okay. So it's crazy. I just came in and just three after three. They were leaving me open. I think they were playing 2-3. Hood College, they're known to play 2-3. So I knew I would have my shots open. So I think I had, like, if I can remember, I think I had 4 in the first, and then the rest of them came in the second half. And yeah, man, it was just honestly crazy. I wish I could just go over and do it again, but it felt great to just, like, I never thought I'd, you know, get a school record for 11 threes, but it was amazing, honestly.
That's so cool. From all your middle school experience, getting cut twice, getting put on JV as an 8th grader, to then setting a school record for that, that is just so cool. And it, as a shooter myself, so like that's the reason I was drawn to that story, because I'm a shooter. I shoot I'm a volume shooter. I shoot a lot of threes. That's how I've always been my whole entire life. Even at the age of 33 right now, I shoot a lot of threes when we play in our city leagues and so forth and all of our tournaments. I love shooting. So when I see a shooter go off and I see a story about a shooter, I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I always tell my kids, I'm like, dude, you'll never beat me. I'm the best shooter in Idaho, hands down. Like, no one will ever I always give my players a little laugh that way. But I always also tell them, and it's funny you just said that, I had no idea about this part of the story, the 2-3 zone. Anytime I'm coaching and a team goes in a 2-3 zone, I'm like, guys, you better light them up. That is a shooter's dream. I don't know why anyone would ever go in a 2-3 zone if you got shooters on the court. That is a shooter's dream. So I had no idea that was part of the story, but that makes sense too, because it's like, you're a shooter, you see the 2-3, you're like, oh, dude, I'm about to eat all day, baby. Let's go.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's so awesome, Matt. So now you're in your junior year. Is that correct?
Senior.
You're a senior this year. Okay, so
Yeah.
what are the expectations for you guys going into your final year of college ball, and what do you expect, Matt, moving forward? What should we expect to see from Matt moving forward with your basketball career and in life in general?
Yeah. So as a team, we're expecting to build off of our success that we've had previously. Like my sophomore year, we won our conference, made it to the NCAA tournament. Junior year was a COVID year. We only had 7 games, but we actually won our conference again. So we're back-to-back champions. So this year we're just looking to build off of it. We know we have a target on our backs. So, we know we can't be complacent. So it's just striving to get to the next level for us. Individually, you're going to see just the same, like hard work. You're going to see someone who's hungry. Like I'm still hungry for more. And yeah, man, like, so in the future, I don't know what the future holds yet, but definitely it's going to be great. But we'll see what God has in store for me. But, just know that big things are coming. That's all I can say right now.
You know what I like about you, Matt, is the fact that you're a man of faith, which I think is so awesome. But there's also the verse, it's stated in the Bible, faith without works is dead. And so you're a man of faith. You put your trust in God, but you also put in the work because you know that faith without works is dead. So you're going to trust in his plan, but you're going to put in the work and do your part of it too, so that his will be done. You know what I mean? And so I think it's so cool to hear you, share your story. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys do accomplish. And I want to ask you one last question as we get ready to wrap it up here. What is the biggest life lesson that sports have taught you, Matt, in your life?
The biggest life lesson? It's a lot of them. But I would say the biggest life lesson is just to, throughout the highs and lows, just to keep pushing no matter what, keep moving forward. There's a lot of things are going to happen, and, highs and lows. Like, a lot of things won't go in your favor, but, as long as you just continue to put the work in, put your head down, don't listen to outside noise, don't compare yourself to other people, you'll be all right. So that's what I would say. I
dig it. What an awesome conversation, man. I'm looking forward to seeing, where you go, whether it's basketball, whether, you decide to hang them up one day, it doesn't matter. I'm looking forward to seeing what you do in life, Matt. And I'm just grateful that you joined me and shared your story. I look forward to just, building that relationship too after the podcast is over. And man, I just look forward to it, brother. And I just want to say thank you so much for joining the show today.
No problem, man. Appreciate you for having me on. It was an honor, man.
Absolutely. I hope you guys like this one. Make sure to leave me a review. Let us know what you thought about Matt's story. And hey, subscribe to the podcast and tune in, because we'll be coming to you next week with another interview. Guys, thanks so much for listening to another episode of my show. Now, if you could go and do me a favor, head over to iTunes, give me 5 stars, and leave me a review. It would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your support.